colleagues, Ita Meno and Tom Lyle, who may chime in. So thanks for having us in. The purpose today was trying to be responsive to low-income, income-eligible coordination and support that BED's energy efficiency programs and Tier 3 programs provide. So I'm not going to repeat what Dwight said because I thought he did it so beautifully, but it's such an important and gratifying partnership that we've had for years, and it's been really nice both for BED, and I believe my colleague from Vermont Gas will echo this as well. 3E Thermal, taking on some of the larger, more complex buildings. The way we have played it and why I have VGS up there is it's become a real partnership for some of these larger Burlington senior buildings that you can have 60, 70, 80 apartments. These get more complex. So we partner with 3E, the Vermont Gas commercial specialist, with the BED commercial specialist, to try to deal with these more complex buildings. And Peter talked about things like controls, VFDs. These are the types of buildings. These aren't, not that the small buildings don't have their issues, but these buildings get a little bit more complicated. So the partnership has just been great. As we probably said ad nauseum, the other reason Vermont Gas is up there is, we're 98% VGS heated in Burlington, and we know that through our partnership with them on a number of things. So we have to work together. We do it, for the mutual benefit of our customers, and it seems to be really appreciated by the customer, the building owner, because we have a lot of rental as well, and also the contractors. The contractors know that BED and VGS are going to talk. We're going to do a lot of work behind the curtain before we're even going to come to them, because they don't need to hear about how we're going to split things or share things. They just know that both of their utilities are going to come up with something. So we're quite pleased with that. Our affordable housing organizations, Burlington has a lot going on. Our partners here from Evernorth are really important, working with these organizations on a lot of the new construction that's happened in Burlington. For folks that are familiar with things like the Cambrian Rise neighborhood, we have a Cathedral Square building up there now. We have a CHT building. Another CHT building is just getting started. We have a CHT building downtown on Main Street, which is a former VFW post that we're all working on. So we feel like the new construction, affordable housing is going quite well. It has slowed, and as Peter and others have said, the cost is astronomical right now for folks to build and to find the labor. The 3 EEUs got together a couple of years ago and tried to augment the incentive for affordable housing buildings for new construction. We think that's going well, but again, costs are a little unprecedented right now. A couple of the pictures up there are not only new construction, but existing as well. Burlington has a dense population of existing affordable housing neighborhoods. Champlain Housing Trust and Burlington Housing Authority, Cathedral Square, have hundreds of units in a variety of buildings across our city that when they need help or they're trying to make a renovation or even just replacing refrigerators, if we can help, that's what we do. I also put up Green Mountain Habitat for Humanity. They do a lot of infill. They will go find an old home and they will tear it down and they will put in a duplex or a triplex. So letting them know we're there for them has been important to us as well. We are seeing more and more naturally occurring heat pump buildings, meaning the developer, the design community, whoever is working on that building has decided that cooling is just something they want to do. And they think it's something that they need to provide. Once you make that design decision, you are going to go look at heat pumps because why put in two systems when you can go to one? As you've heard us report on before, we want to put heat pumps in really, really good buildings so we can use our Tier 3 to help with the heat pump technology. We can use our EEU to really help on making a really high performance building. Coordination with our Res Tier 3 programs. For us, it's a way that we combine it under what we call the Net Zero Energy City program. We just want to meet customers where they're at. Some customers really, really want to just talk about an EV. They want to talk about a charging system. They want to talk about heat pumps. Some want to talk about weatherizing their gas home or their oil home. So we try to have a wraparound service so that we are there for listening and presenting all the things that we have to offer to the customer. We also offer enhanced incentives for folks that are income eligible. So if you are income eligible and you want an EV or an e-bike or an e-lawnmower or a heat pump, just like we do on the EEU side, we give a higher incentive to help folks make that purchase. Another example of it is the idea that we are allowing the rebate money to be there at the point of purchase. So you're in Burlington, you want to buy an e-bike, you're going to get the rebate while you purchase it at the bike shop. Same with an EV, and then we participate in the midstream program for contractor discounts when contractors are going in and buying heat pumps, heat pump water heaters, things like that through the statewide partnership. So we think that makes things more accessible. The idea for us is also to be able to not only do prescriptive incentives that work off the EEU side and the Tier 3 side, but also a host of customer incentives, or custom incentives. So for example, we have the COTS, the Community of Temporary Shelter, who's dealing with the homelessness issue. They are redoing a former commercial office building downtown, and BED and Vermont Gas have gotten together and have come up with a way to help them go to hybrid rooftop units. So these are units that are typically on the top of buildings that provide heat, cooling, and ventilation. The two utilities came together and said, we know your budgets are tight. We know that you really need to get the shelter open before winter, but we're going to come in here and try to influence you to make this decision. So again, there's a number of ways that we do this on a custom level as well. In terms of how do we reach and how do we do outreach and support our organizations, we do it in a number of ways in our relatively small footprint, but we have really, I would say, tripled our effort to try to be out in the community on a consistent basis, not do it just once. We try to be out there quite a bit. It can be energy fairs, it can be going into food pantries and trying to become a trusted partner to the staff so that they can talk to their clientele. We do a lot of social media, email, and the other that my colleague Ita may be able to give a little bit more flavor to is the amount of time we just spend in places that we know the community is trying to serve income qualified folks. And that can be the Fletcher Free Library, it can be the family room in the Old North End, it can be the King Street Laundry, which has also become kind of a neighborhood clearinghouse, places like that we feel like we're able to just get into, do a better job at outreach. And stepping back to our work with Dwight, a lot of what happens is we can get a high bill complaint coming through our customer care team. The customer care team says, this person is really struggling. And can we turn that over to the energy services team, the team members that focus just on residential? That person will help that customer, enroll in our Energy Gauge portal so that they can look at their data. They're starting the whole education process. And then we find out, are they eligible for Dwight's program? If they are, we hand them off, and we hope we've handed them off with a little bit more information. They know more about their energy bill. They know how they can go look at it through our portal. And by the time Dwight's team gets to them, it's okay. The journey will begin. And we feel like that's a very nice relationship. The other thing that we've been doing, and we do this in partnership with the other EEUs, The EEUs get together quarterly, and we have an equity task force meeting just to share ideas and to talk about, all right, well, what are you doing? What's working? But we also do energy clinics with the Association of Africans Living in Vermont, Legal Aid, and our strong partnership with CVOEO on a number of things. We have done a number of videos, and the one that I have up on the screen right now is one that we did on weatherization. We did another one on how to read your bill. Burlington has a very diverse community with how many languages do we have now?
Oh, well over 40 languages being spoken, and 10% of the Burlington community has households with adult English language learners or can't speak English with any degree of fluency. And I mention adults because a lot of organizations rely on children to help interpret. And I don't know if any of you have ever had a 12-year-old in your life. There's no way that they can understand some of the things that we're saying.
Coefficient of performance and all those other things. That's right. So you'll see one of the videos. These are things that we're just trying to get out into the community. And, we really felt that a barrier was the trust between, us as a DU and people who are struggling to pay their bill. How are you going to trust us when we are really kind of doing our DU thing? And we need to work on the bill payment issues too, but we're also over here on the EEU and Tier 3 side trying to get you to do things to your building. So things like demystifying the bill through video and translating it into just so many different languages that we know are spoken in our community, and having a constant presence out there through our dedicated project and equity analyst it's just been vital. And we really feel like over the last few years, our partnership and trust, is even if we weren't in the EEU, it's a good thing for a muni DU to be doing, but we think it's paying dividends in our programs, even though times have been very tough, right? The Burlington economy is not doing well. We have a lot of issues in our commercial sector. We have a lot of public safety issues, and things are a little just tense for a lot of people. But we're just going to continue this work because we feel the trusted partner approach works very well for us. And just a little bit more on the question that you asked in the workshop setup is, what are we doing in terms of the coordination between the EEU and the DU? And, things like braiding in the Act 44 of 2023 and Act 142 of 2024, things, as I've mentioned before, that's the new Burlington High School that, is going to touch every child, most every child going through the Burlington School District. That is a building that we brought everything to bear. We brought all of the flexibility that we had to encourage them to drill the well, find out if they were going to hit enough water to take care of that building, and they did. So the building is on its way to being 100% geothermally heated and cooled. It is a fabulous, at least on paper and what we're seeing in when we go look at it, a really well done building. And very healthy from a ventilation standpoint, from a material standpoint. And, we just think that flexibility to bring all the money to bear, helped do that. We've done that on a couple other projects as well, that we think are, works very well for us. And then the other is, just the close partnership, as I've said on multiple occasions, with VGS continues to just continue to get stronger over the years, just because of the efforts that we're trying to bring on behalf of our customers. And the three EEUs, we have the equity partnership, but we partner on quite a few programs. And we think that's to the best interest of the Vermont ratepayer. So I think that is it. Happy to answer any questions.
I have one, but it's probably not for an answer right now, but it's a request. That's at the very end of Mr. Walk's presentation. He talked about sort of potential for miscommunication or lack of sufficient communication on tier 3 and EEU incentives, for example. Not his words, my words. So since you're the same entity, it would be really interesting to take a look at some point, or if you could provide an example, and this is pre-Act 142 EDMA, of how do you decide what goes in the tier 3 bucket, what goes in your sort of DU or the EEU bucket, electric versus TEPF. You've got 3 different buckets. How do you decide what incentive goes where and what project goes where, those kind of things. And again, I'm not going to ask you to do it right now, but it is something that I would be very interested, because you've been doing that dance for a while. Mm-hmm. It'd be really interesting to see.
Can I give you the quickest answer?
Absolutely.
So heat pump, midstream, contractor discount, that is the market opportunity. We take that move and we say, that's an electric EEU resource acquisition measure. That's what's going to fund it, because it's baseline code compliant heat pump to the more efficient one that's on our statewide qualified products list. That goes into its own project number and tracked in its own way from an EEU perspective that goes through the electric measurement and verification process that the department runs. Then the TEPF, the fossil fuel displacement assumptions, that stays in TEPF under its own project number, over its own accounting. That bucket of money supports that. When we get into some of these more complicated custom projects, that we have had to do a dance there, but I think we have it pretty well worked out.
Great, thank you. I think you're benefiting from later in the day, or, but thank you.
Thanks.
All right, Vermont Gas. So.
Good afternoon. My name is Tim Perrin. I'm the Director of Energy Management for Vermont Gas Systems. Joined today by my colleague, Dylan Giambattista, who's here to answer any of the real difficult and pointed questions. So please don't be shy. I appreciate the opportunity to come down here and share some of our experiences that I've had in the last 5 years of leading up our energy efficiency programs, as well as the last 25 years before that of delivering both in-house as well as appointed energy efficiency utility programs for our customers. So I want to start off by kind of zooming out to the 50,000 foot view. So regardless of whether we are the service provider or the appointed energy efficiency utility, or we're talking about Dwight's program or Efficiency Vermont or the great work that Chris in his shop does, really thermal efficiency is about having to install things, whether it's weatherization, whether it's high efficiency equipment, whether it's advanced thermostats or heat pumps. And usually the installations rely upon contractors. And there's a lot of great work that's been happening within the Vermont marketplace to spin up the Efficiency Excellence Network, trained and certified contractors that will give you a fair price and do quality work across the board, of whether it's a heat pump installation or whether it's weatherization work. Prioritizing customer needs, I feel, requires kind of these 2 categories of being able to deliver upon programs. Some customers really benefit and are asking for a turnkey service. We call it fast track. It's actually been around for about 30 years. So customers that may not know where to start, they're just interested in reducing their energy use, or they've heard about this weatherization thing, or customers that are high use homes or income eligible. We actually have 3 in-house energy auditors that will deliver a free energy audit, develop a scope of work, shape it into a proposal that includes pricing, incentives, 0% financing, and try to make it very easy for the customer to be able to make an informed decision as to whether they want to move forward or not. From there, if the customer opts to move forward, we have a stable of contractors, some of which we've been working with for over 25 years, that effectively deliver the weatherization work, with our team, our energy auditors, serving as a project manager and providing that quality assurance throughout the entire process. This is immensely helpful, again, when customers don't know exactly what they want, they're not looking to shop around, solicit multiple bids, they're confused about what the process looks like. So being able to provide these end-to-end services can be incredibly impactful. It's also incredibly resource intensive. So we have 3 members of our team that are funded by the energy efficiency charge that provide these energy auditing and project management services. Some of this was discussed as part of some of the department's recommendations in the Act 142 proceeding around energy cost stabilization, around an energy navigator, and what form and fashion could that look like to help homeowners, help multifamily project developers really navigate what the process and those available resources could look like. Market-based delivery is also incredibly valuable. So for customers who think they know what they want, I'm residing my house, I'm just looking to add some additional exterior insulation. I'm refinishing a room in my basement and I want to make sure that I'm insulating behind those walls before they get sealed up. Or I know that there's only 2 inches of insulation up in my attic. I need somebody to come up there, make sure things are properly air sealed, blow in some cellulose, and then not have to worry about it. This is where customers may not necessarily need that project facilitation management services, but can tap into members of our team as that trusted resource. And maybe more importantly, being able to leverage the incentives and 0% financing that we offer. Both of which are incredibly important for us to be able to advance weatherization work, as well as everything else that we're looking to accomplish to help decarbonize thermal efficiency and move to heat pumps statewide.
Can I ask a question?
Of course.
In terms of the 0% financing, what entity is providing that financing?
So we have a relationship with Green Mountain Credit Union, who is the bank that customers are working with. We provide a buy down of the interest rate from the preferential 5.99% down to 0% over 5 years. About 20, sometimes 30% of our customers, depending on the year, have taken us up on that option. It's free money. And in a rising interest rate environment and inflationary pressures, it can be very attractive. And in most cases, you can combine that 0% financing with the available incentives for weatherization, as well as being able to pursue equipment replacement at the same time. Thanks. Of course. So for those of us that have participated in some of the triennial plan workshops, I won't belabor a lot of these points. It's kind of extracted directly from that slide deck. But this is an overview of our residential programs, and specifically ones that are for income qualified households. So as I mentioned at the top, really being able to provide kind of enhanced level of service and enhanced incentives for homes with the highest energy burdens that can benefit from some of those hand-holding coaching services and more money in order to help get them across the finish line. As part of our intake process now, we're actually capturing some of the kind of income qualification questions on the front end of the process, just so we know what path we can send a customer down. For market rate homes, the energy usage threshold for keeping them in-house versus kind of handing them off to a contractor, that threshold is higher than for moderate income and low income households, acknowledging that there's more that we can generally do when we can bring more incentives to the table. And generally those income qualified households just need that higher level of support. Currently, our incentive levels match both Burlington Electric's and Efficiency Vermont's for low income household, 90% of the project cost up to $9,500. The moderate income incentive scaled a little bit lower, and then a lower tier for market rate as well. Everybody is eligible for the 0% financing for weatherization, as well as pursuing high efficiency natural gas equipment. The fast track program that I mentioned earlier, free energy audit, project management, quality assurance, those end-to-end services. And 0% financing includes not only being able to upgrade, include some of the weatherization measures, but also the home repair, weatherization readiness measures that have been talked about by my colleagues. That's so incredibly important. There's not enough money for us to be able to spend to cover 100% of the cost of that. By being able to at least finance it at 0% for the right homeowner, for the right property owner, they may see that there's kind of an attractive path forward for them to address that and do the weatherization work. And then the Weatherization Repayment Assistance Program, effectively on-bill financing for being able to do weatherization and heat pumps as part of the same bundle package. One thing that we're piloting this year, and you'll likely see as part of our demand resource plan for the next 3-year period, is we've had success with around 25 households thus far of either an energy auditor, member of our team, or a member of our field service team, identifying that there's a boiler, there's a furnace, there's a heating system that's in there that's 40 years old. We actually encountered one recently that was 77 years old that had a conversion burner from oil over to natural gas installed 50 years ago. But it was still kicking, operating 70% plus or minus rated efficiency by being able to do an aggressive incentive, and in some cases combined with 0% interest, ideally part of a bundled package with weatherization work. We've been piloting the early replacement, early retirement of those heating systems as part of a truly comprehensive package. So helping customers, particularly income qualified customers, maximize what they can do all at once so that they're not having to say, oh, Vermont Gas can help me with my weatherization, but I've got to go with a different contractor for this. And I want to do my water heater or going over to heat pumps, so I got to go with a different contractor for that. As well as new construction, Chris had pointed this out as well. We work with lots of partners within the affordable housing community for being able to deliver high performance single family homes, as well as have jointly developed a checklist based approach, the multifamily high performance checklist, so that developers and contractors know what to expect in order to achieve beyond code efficiency and have a defined per unit incentive that they can count on before they start the project and commit to what performance level they want to proceed with. We work with a lot of affordable housing providers across our footprint, and I know the other EEUs do, both within Burlington as well as statewide. And members of our team actively collaborate with one another, even in some cases where Vermont Gas may be there and they're not moving forward with a gas-fired primary heating system. By being able to bring some of that outside perspective, collaboration, both with our EEU and distribution utility partners, and in most cases, generally saying the same thing to the developers, saying the same thing to the building owners, can often help folks kind of adopt and accelerate energy efficiency because they're not just hearing one voice, but they're hearing the same consistent thing from multiple partners.
One quick question about the equipment rentals. Could you talk a little bit about how that functions, how it's paid for, things like that?
So the equipment rentals is something that is technically beyond our energy efficiency program. Vermont Gas has been renting combustion-based equipment for going back 50 years on your Vermont Gas bill. Started with water heaters, and we're starting to conversion burners, space heaters, and starting to explore other things that we could potentially use that mechanism for. And we also are renting heat pump water heaters, centrally ducted heat pumps, and mini splits on your Vermont Gas bill because members of our team can install that. The energy efficiency utility support is the same as if there was another contractor who was installing the equipment, where we have point of purchase rebates for combustion-based equipment. And then we're leveraging some of the other energy efficiency programs and tier 3 programs to help support heat pump rebates at the same time. And all of that is passed along in terms of one rental charge that the customer's paying for some number of years on their Vermont Gas bill.
How is that affected by, say, someone moves from that property to another property, or maybe even outside of VGS's service territory?
So as a new owner ends up taking over the property, they are generally made aware when they sign up for Vermont Gas service that there is a piece of rental equipment that's installed with some number of years still left on their term. And the customer can be afforded the opportunity to extend that or seek a new option if they don't want to be a rental anymore. Yes. Lots of coordination and collaboration. I've really kind of outlined the bullets for those who are in the room today. So we talked a lot about in Dwight's presentation, the management of lots of different funding sources from the federal, state, and energy efficiency utility level, being able to leverage some of our funding to help offset the other various funding buckets, ideally being able to give them funding that's more flexible that they can use in a variety of different applications for all of the income levels that they serve, as opposed to having lots of hoops or rules that they need to jump through in order to tap into those resources. We're also working with CVOEO now as part of our updated agreement for if there are home repair, home readiness items, and fuel switches, that in addition to the weatherization work, our EEU can also fund some of those improvements as well. And it goes both ways. So if a member of our team or an outside contractor were to identify that a heating system for a Vermont gas customer needs to be reg tagged, it's unsafe, needs to be replaced, and the customer qualifies as low income, then generally we're reaching out to Dwight's team just to see if the emergency heating system replacement program can help cover most, if not all, of the costs in order to get folks to a safe working condition. For our partnership with Burlington Electric, as I mentioned, we have 3 in-house energy auditors going out, working within Burlington, as well as the rest of our service territory. For each one of those, our team reaches out to Brian Riley, member of Chris's team, to also capture electric information so that we can understand, is there high natural gas use in addition to high electricity use in the winter? Do we see a cooling load that's there? And as we develop the set of recommendations and come up with an estimated energy savings based on our building energy model, we'll share that with the Burlington Electric team and say, we expect that this weatherization project will reduce natural gas consumption by about 20%. We see that there's some electric heat and some cooling in there. Is there an opportunity for us to join forces with our incentive budget and bring a little bit more to the table so that we can help get this customer over the hurdle of being able to move forward? So that's that joint weatherization incentive. There's also been an ordinance that was passed 3 years ago at this point of really focusing on weatherization requirements for rental properties, particularly high use rental properties. And we've seen lots of landlord interest, for better or worse, some of which proactive, some of which begrudgingly, and to work closely with the Burlington Electric team and the Department of Permitting and Inspections just to be able to provide kind of a complementary set of services, guidance, sometimes in-house energy auditing, sometimes working with outside contractors, and making those rental property owners aware of all the resources that are collectively available for them.
Tim?
Yes, sir.
Just going back to your point earlier about coordination with the CVOEO, you mentioned that you identify low-income qualifying customers. How do you identify somebody that's low-income qualifying?
As part of the intake form that we use for any customer that's interested in pursuing a weatherization assessment, we ask 2 qualifying questions that get at income. 1, are you at or below the moderate income levels? And if yes, then if you feel comfortable, are you at or below the low income levels? Or are you on Medicaid, SNAP, or receiving some LIHEAP, LIAP, or receiving some other corresponding low income benefit that would qualify you automatically for our program? We also work with Champlain Housing Trust to do independent third-party verification, particularly for low-income customers. We want to make sure that the resources that we're spending and the minimum performance requirement that we're tracking to as an EEU, that those resources are actually getting to qualifying low-income households. So we work with Champlain Housing Trust, or in some cases CVOEO, to actually do that level of income verification for us on the front end before we can guarantee that we can bring that 90% incentive level to the table and any other kind of income qualified programs. The hybrid rooftop unit project that Chris mentioned at the Burlington COTS Committee on Temporary Shelter, he mentioned the capital expense side of things, where our energy efficiency program, as well as Burlington Electric, were able to help buy down most of the incremental costs of being able to get the hybrid rooftop unit installed. But we're also acknowledging that the spark gap that exists between gas prices and electric prices, even with the performance of heat pumps, there's still a difference that exists there. So trying to encourage a low-income service provider like COTS to drive that heat pump to be providing the primary heating down to those lower outside air temperatures can actually lead to an operating expense increase for them within our footprint. So we're exploring a pay-for-performance model of being able to understand how low they can reasonably go with that switchover point in terms of what the equipment is capable of doing. And then by being able to monitor the incremental electric use associated with driving that switchover point lower, we're going to work collaboratively to cover the difference in cost between natural gas prices and what the corresponding electric increase is. The facility director for COTS just happens to be worked out to be a former VEICer, like some of us in this room, so he's willing to play ball with some of this science project. But we feel like there could be kind of an interesting opportunity there to not only address some of the capital expense, but also those ongoing operating expenses to encourage customers of all sizes to be able to move forward with decarbonizing through beneficial electrification. And last but surely not least, Efficiency Vermont, a lot of the market transformation activities that Peter had highlighted, the Efficiency Excellence Network of contractors. We wouldn't be able to do it without an organization that is ensuring that contractors know what they're doing, are giving fair prices, and are making sure that are delivering quality customer experiences for a lot of the programs that we deliver in the marketplace. Efficiency Vermont also provides the front end of their online rebate center so that for weatherization contractors that are doing work within our footprint, within Burlington Electric territory or statewide, contractors don't need to learn a variety of different platforms and having to be entering different data depending on which energy efficiency utility they're working with. The online rebate center can accommodate all of those for weatherization projects, as well as for smart thermostats statewide. And high performance new construction, again, really looking to transform the market, having one multifamily high performance checklist that works across all service territories, so that when the Evernorth team is building a new building in South Burlington or in Springfield, they kind of know what to expect and are working off of the same incentive framework. Also, just quickly highlighting lots of other partners that are working specifically within the income qualified weatherization space, whether it's Heat Squad by Cornerstone Housing that provides energy auditing as well as project management services for us in Addison County, Champlain Housing Trust, that's not only a partner for us on affordable housing, but also handles income qualification for us, Vermont Credit Union, 0% financing for all of our customers, and Vermont Housing Financing Agency, who's serving as the bank for WRAP, Weatherization Repayment Assistance Program. And last slide here, what does this look like over the last 5 or 6 years? Well, we've been able to dramatically improve the number of energy assessments for weatherization, as well as the completed number of units we've been able to serve since 2020. Some of that's in nature of increasing our minimum performance requirement for low-income households. Some of it's also the fact that we moved some of our income qualification step earlier in the process so that we could, again, make sure that we are helping guide homeowners, rental property owners down the path of least resistance and ensure that they're unlocking all of the services, incentives, and 0% financing that we can bring to the table. But we're proud of the work that we've been able to ramp up in recent years in terms of not only delivering direct incentive support, technical assistance to low-income households, but also boosting the number of participants, low and moderate income, not only with single family, but also the range of affordable housing projects that we work with to weatherize.
Just on the numbers here, are these calendar or year or fiscal year numbers?
These are calendar year numbers. Yeah.
Excuse me, can you talk a little bit about, and I'm thinking you mentioned that the incentive levels are the same for BGS, BED, Efficiency Vermont. I thought I heard you say that.
The low income incentive level is, and the market rate incentive level is, where both BED and Vermont Gas are offering a little bit less than Efficiency Vermont for moderate income, because we just haven't been able to leverage some of the same federal dollars to support that program.
So those are for prescriptive measures, I assume, not custom, the incentive that you're talking about.
This is intended to encourage comprehensive weatherization projects, regardless of whether members of our team are managing it or the customer is working with an outside Building Performance Institute certified contractor.
Got it.
So that market-based approach versus kind of the turnkey service.
Yeah, thanks. So that was actually a bad question from my perspective, because for customers with low income, it's always going to be prescriptive, not custom for the most part. Is that correct?
We intend to go as comprehensively as possible. So, and although kind of the incentive guidance is that 90% up to $9,500, it's something where we sometimes will bring additional funding to the table. If it's a really attractive project in terms of acquisition cost, really being able to go deep in terms of what is being talked about in terms of the project scope, and if there are other factors that come into play.
What does that look like in practice in terms of the coordination? Is it something you meet monthly, quarterly, yearly to talk about incentive levels and the coordination?
So we meet monthly with the Efficiency Vermont team and Burlington Electric just to talk about weatherization programs, potential incentive changes, contractor management, anything else that's being considered to ensure that we're kind of all on the same page and being able to provide some input as that program is designed and it evolves over time. I'm generally in touch with Chris or a member of his team on a weekly basis and individuals over at Efficiency Vermont, generally about kind of project specific issues, both on the residential side or with commercial programs, so that we're able to collaborate, ideally on the front end of the process, to ensure that we have a unified message going back to the customer and we're not potentially creating confusion that exists.
And my last question, few people have mentioned insufficient money for all eligible customers, and I'm assuming VGS has the same issue, that you have more demand than supply. Is that correct?
Absolutely.
And since your footprint, VGS's footprint, sort of spans a lot of the electric, or some of the electric EEUs, is the percentage of customers within, let's say, GMP versus VEC, is that relatively consistent? Does it change a lot? I'm thinking in terms of how are the electric utilities potentially sort of collaborating with VGS on, and not just for low income projects, just generally, like.
Yes.
Do your efficiency projects, the geographic scope, does it change considerably year by year, or no? Okay.
No, it's fairly stable.
Okay.
Yeah, although my presentation was really focused on kind of income qualified residential programs, the majority of the work that we do in collaboration with Green Mountain Power, Vermont Electric Co-op, Enosburg Electric, as well as Swanton Electric, where we have overlapping footprints, as well as Burlington Electric, of course, is on the commercial side. So being able to identify, customer thinks about energy efficiency is kind of one large bucket, not necessarily breaking it out to, hey, this is thermal efficiency and this is electric efficiency and this is heat pump, so that's coming out of a different funding source. So if any one of us DUs or EEUs get wind of a large commercial or industrial project, we are generally kind of running point, working with the customer, working with the design team, and then informing some of our other partners that there might be something that's of interest to them. So by being able to collaborate in terms of joint tier 3 and EEU incentives on the thermal side of things, as well as have it being part of a bundled package that may include the electric efficiency incentive at the same time, it makes it easier for those building owners to kind of collaborate with one entity as opposed to sharing with everybody separately and then having to wait to hear back kind of what the incentive package looks like from us and Efficiency Vermont and then Green Mountain Power. And that seemingly has worked really well.
Great. Thank you.
Of course.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you.
3:30. The state house closes at 4.
Oh.
Well, the workshop was 1 to 4. But so we are running.
How many people do we have left? Sorry, trying to coordinate.
The distribution utilities are the last presentation.
Those are,
And then I know Evernorth would like to make comments as well.
yeah.
So. Okay, we were just whispering over here. The state house does close at 4 o'clock, but this also was scheduled until 4, and so we don't want to keep people later. Obviously, I don't think we're going to get to maybe all of the discussion and questions that maybe we would like to. We have the distribution utilities to hear from, so we'll get that going. How long would Evernorth like to speak?
10 to 15 minutes.
Okay. Do you think we can keep it to 20 minutes?
I can speak as quickly as you'd like me to speak. So.
All right. Thank you.
Figured I'd get into place. Lisa Morris, Vermont Electric Co-op, and I'll be giving the joint presentation for all the utilities that you see the logos for on the slide. And that being said, I am by no means an expert on everything in this presentation. The past couple of weeks, we pulled all the various ways that we engage with partners and these specific areas together into this presentation. So there are a lot of other experts in the room who can potentially respond to questions. So we've been doing this, as was noted at the beginning of this hearing, or this workshop for about 9 years. And when we began, there was a recognition of the wealth of energy services that are available in the state of Vermont. So rather than reinvent the wheel, we have relied heavily on partners in the state of Vermont to deliver programs under Tier 3. So one of the main things that we do in collaboration is we collaborate on the statewide incentives that are available. Oh, I have the clicker. Let's see. There we go. So we collaborate on the statewide incentives that are available for all different types of heat pumps, so ducted, ductless, air source rooftop, and geothermal heat pumps, as well as heat pump water heaters and advanced wood heating. So there is generally a statewide incentive that's available to everybody. And that is typically delivered at the distributor or contractor level. So regardless of what distribution utility you have, you would be able to take advantage of that standard incentive. And then there are sometimes incentives on top of that the various distribution utilities offer for these different measures.
To that, that's interesting to hear, because I feel like when we get filings, we see the particular incentive level that each DU provides. So I don't know what the base maybe incentives are, or the standard incentives. So maybe that's information that could be compiled and provided after the workshop.
Yeah, I think we could put that together for definitely and file that. And it would be in our compliance filings that we file every year as well. So the amount of dollars that we specifically, that a distribution utility has contributed to a specific measure would be in that filing as well.
I'm aware of that. The idea that there's like a statewide minimum amount, or that you're all covering the same, I don't know. There's something lost in translation here.
So that's just meant to say that there is a streamlined incentive for these various measures that are listed on the slide. So you're typically getting that at the distributor or contractor level, rather than necessarily having to apply for it after the fact in most cases.
So you're not talking about amount.
It is as well a specific amount as well. Okay. Yeah, so it's a streamlined process, and then it's also a standard amount.
Okay, again, I guess a filing explaining the standard amount that all the DUs are providing would be helpful.
Yeah, so that's typically offered in partnership with Efficiency Vermont. So it goes through Efficiency Vermont, and then they would be invoicing their distribution utility partners for the amount that we have agreed to contribute for a specific measure. So on top of that, we design and implement custom incentives, oftentimes in partnership with Efficiency Vermont and other statewide partners. And those would usually be commercial and industrial projects. So one has already been noted in Peter Walk's presentation for a ski area. We've done them with sugar makers and sawmills, and there's lots of different C&I partners who we design and implement custom incentives for. And so those would have a specific amount of electric and thermal savings associated with them. So we would work with Efficiency Vermont to kind of scope that out and then figure out what the appropriate incentive might be for that project that each partner would be interested in contributing. We also work together on education and technical assistance. So there may be certain types of questions that come to us from our members or customers that we would then refer to a partner like Efficiency Vermont or a weatherization assistance program, or whatever the appropriate partner is in that case. And there may be some things that we would handle ourselves. So we try to steer people in the right direction to get the appropriate information that they're looking for. Monthly, we have a distribution utility and Efficiency Vermont working group meeting where we go over anything related to Tier 3 and energy efficiency programs, any other programs that we might be operating jointly, just to share information and move programs forward. And we collaborate on the goals and incentives and the market transformation activities as part of those meetings. We also have our Tier 3 technical advisory group meetings that happen generally from May through September. So if we're interested in a new prescriptive incentive, getting that specified as part of the tag process to go into the technical manual, so that for X measure we get X amount of Tier 3 savings. That would be through part of that process. Or if there's new information that's come to bear for something like heat pumps or electric vehicles, that study would be discussed and then would be integrated into the manual. So then we also, coordinate on things like flexible load management, market development, and all those things, just on kind of an ad hoc basis throughout the year. So for low-income weatherization programs, we deploy collaborative programs. So one example that Peter Walk mentioned in his presentation as well is the low-income fuel switch program, which is funded jointly by Efficiency Vermont and the distribution utilities. So that has enabled the installation completely free of somewhere between 400 and 500 heat pumps, specifically to customers who have gone through the weatherization assistance program. So they've been identified as meeting the income criteria, and then also they have a building that's appropriate for heat pumps because it has been weatherized. So we've been doing that program for, I think this would be the third year that we have been participating in that program. There is also a program called Rewire that I believe Washington Electric Cooperative ran for their members, that was funded by B-Light to help with panel upgrades, service upgrades. There's also rental weatherization with technical assistance in collaboration with VGS. So we also work, so we have a point of contact every month with our members and our customers, whether they like it or not, which is in the form of a bill. And so we have the opportunity to distribute, information about different programs that may be available to them. We have the opportunity to target specific information to specific demographics, to let them know about programs that may be available to them. We can do bill inserts. We have strong social media presences. We all have strong email lists. So we have a lot of tools to push out information and help our customers and members connect with these programs. So some examples of those would be the Tier 3 incentives, the Affordable Community Renewable Energy Program to provide bill credits, EAP rates, and other grant-supported programs. So just more on that, so more about the collaboration on outreach and education. So again, we're able to put information out on social media. So examples of that would be videos and other social media campaigns. We all work on the Button Up program in the fall to let our members and customers know about opportunities there. It's already been mentioned about the language translation. We do, our other utilities do feedback sessions with CVOEO participants, community ambassadors, technical support, so providing customer usage history for energy auditors. So that's a frequent point of contact with those programs. And then this last bullet point was actually a BED program that has already been covered by Chris in the previous presentation.
I asked a question about outreach education, and I think this would actually apply for other folks as well, not necessarily the answer today. One of the things I've heard about is sort of collaboration and outreach fatigue of people keep seeing, especially with, Efficiency Vermont says, hey, look at this great thing. And then EEU says, hey, look at this great thing. And they look very similar unless you're one of the nerds in this room. And so people don't understand the distinctions with that. And I'm curious about the coordination on outreach and with the CAPS and other agencies as well to make sure you're not flooding people and they just say, we just give up. I'm just kind of curious, does that come up in the coordination discussions that you have?
We do definitely talk quite a bit about different outreach campaigns, and we may sign off on them with Efficiency Vermont if they're doing a specific, say, heat pump campaign, for example. We may, they may ask, can we put your logo on this? So there's a lot of collaboration that happens there. I mean, a lot of times we do have our own kind of take on things. So, and I feel like there is a fine line between oversaturating people with information and, they say you need to have 3 points, you need to see something 3 times before it really sinks in. So I think that there can be a fine line there, but that is something good to keep in mind for us.
And it is, so I'm seeing nods around there. Great, okay.
We don't do a lot. We're the best kept secret. We're so busy, we don't have, we don't have to do a lot of marketing. We get a lot of calls, hey, you're giving out free heat pumps. That's EEU. So we get a lot of, everybody thinks we're all the same.
Yeah. Thank you.
Right. But I think to speak to your critique question, I think the goal is to make it seamless for the customer. Like they don't want to see the difference. Right. So go to Elizabeth's question about heat pump rebates. We list on our website the like full statewide rebate that everybody has access to, and don't differentiate the fact that you're going to get part of it from GMP and part of it from us, because that the customer doesn't.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe something more explaining that, because with the res filings, it looks like the incentives are all different from all the utilities, but then EBT is covering the difference in a lot of cases. That
I would suggest that we actually dive into that in a subsequent workshop with it, because I think that is a pretty deep dive potentially. So
yeah, we can probably put that all together in one document for you. Yeah, may raise more questions than it answers, but at least it would be in one spot. So income eligible programs. So financial incentives. Many of us do have low income adders for electric vehicles and other and heat pumps as well. So for different methods, we may have low income adders. Low income rates. So there's some utilities that have low income rates. Funding for programs that help members pay their bills. So one example of that is the Affordable Community Renewable Energy Program, which is a grant-funded program. And then funding for battery programs. So one example of that right now is the ESOP program, which is being rolled out in a few different utilities. So again, on the education and outreach, I don't want to belabor that point, but we have, a variety of ways that we reach out to our customers and our members. Something that hasn't been mentioned so far is local energy fairs, energy clinics, and community events that we go to. If I'm at one, I will inevitably see, other utility folks there, and from Efficiency Vermont and Vermont Gas as well, just talking about the different programs that are available. Office hours at community locations, winterization of vehicles, and also at food pantries. So just making those different points of contact. So whichever makes sense for the community that the utility is serving. And then on affordable housing programs, so all DUs have developed relationships. Okay, well, at least we can't run over, so. Okay, let's see. So the utilities work, as has been mentioned, with Vermont Gas and some of the other entities. We also work to develop custom projects specific to affordable housing. So when there's an affordable housing project being developed in our service territory or being renovated in our service territory, we will frequently have a conversation early on to make them aware of the incentives that they would be eligible for, and potentially even provide some custom incentives on top of that, depending on the specific details. And then there's the proposed expansion of the EAP rate to include eligibility options for nonprofit entities that provide affordable housing and shelters. So something that could be coming in the future. We also collaborate on RAP. RAP was already mentioned earlier for the on-bill payment for weatherization projects, just another tool to fund weatherization. We participated in the Switch and Save program for heat pump water heaters, which was specific for low and moderate income, and also the home electrical service upgrade program to help get those services to folks who need them. And then also citing car share, electric vehicles, chargers, and pole-mounted EV chargers at affordable housing locations. So the last slide is, just in terms of consensus feedback, we all have different perspectives when it comes to Tier 3, different ways of setting our incentives. But something that we all agreed on was that it would be nice to have a single entity for income verification when it comes to low income programs. And to the extent possible, this is not always possible just because of the funding source, but a single measure as well, or a single standard in terms of income eligibility when at all possible. And then in terms of statewide implementation of incentives, there is quite a diversity of the incentives, just because again we do have different service territories, different priorities. Our members and our customers, may come to us with different perspectives on, a specific level of what an incentive should be. And we're working to balance those things from our individual distribution utility perspective. And I'll just say, since we're short on time, just point out that, a lot of additional information about these programs is available in the Act 142 investigation. Thank you.
That's great. Thanks. In the interest of not getting booted out, I think I'm going to hold any questions. I do want to, I'm not sure that we're going to be able to get through this today.
Take 10 minutes if you think.
I could do that. Yeah, one of the quick things, why don't we transition out? Thank you.
Thank you.
One of the things I would suggest is next steps, we're going to be sort of regrouping and sending things out, but I'd love to hear more ideas for productive next topic for a workshop. I think incentives and coordination on incentives would be particularly helpful, but other ideas welcome. Thank you.
Thanks for your time. Kathy Beyer, I'm Senior Vice President for Real Estate Development at Evernorth. And to be clear, Evernorth is a customer. We've used every one of the projects programs that have been described in this room. I'm going to cut a lot of my presentation short, but do want you to understand that we are one of the largest multifamily developers across the state, and we work in partnership with regional nonprofits such as Champlain Housing Trust, has been mentioned here today. And we have worked very close with the weatherization programs. I'm on the weatherization policy group, advisory group. And I can say that 3E Thermal is a great example of a way to say this is not working that well for large multifamily building owners, the weatherization programs across the state. We were in the discussions to create 3E Thermal, which focuses on the larger multifamily buildings, which are quite different than single family homes or small rental buildings. So that was an example of a success that happened a few years back. So I want to talk about energy equity. And what was noted in the department's memo is that we know our LMI Vermonters have the highest energy burden. And we also know from the data that our lowest income Vermonters live in rental housing. The median income of a homeowner in Vermont is around $90,000 and renters is around $43,000. So from an equity lens, if we were starting all over with our energy incentive framework, we would, in my opinion, want to make sure that the largest benefit went to the lowest income households. This doesn't suggest we would be expanding the pool of incentives. We might just be deepening the incentives that go to lower income households. And then within this, thinking about the residential landscape, it's really necessary to break down home ownership versus rental because they're very different decision-making paradigms. And we've talked, I think, a fair amount about home ownership today. And I think the weatherization program does a very good job of a comprehensive approach for homeowners, and particularly low-income homeowners. But in the renter category, which is about 23% of the residential house buildings, we need to further break it down into two categories. And one is what you're probably familiar with, which is a split incentive where the renter pays the utilities and the building owner does not. I'm not going to talk about that today because that's a really unsolvable problem, but someday maybe we can find some ways to address that. So where the owner pays the heating and cooling, the owner has the incentive to improve the energy efficiency of their building. And this is where I have a bias. That is the approach we use at Evernorth. And we do so for a couple of reasons. One is to give the renter, low-income renters, shield them from price fluctuation in energy prices, right? They're low-income households. They have enough challenges. We can give them stability there. Second, and probably the most important, is again, it's this aligning the incentive of the building owner to not only install energy efficient systems and to build a very robust thermal shell, but to maintain it over time. And that's a really important thing to think about as we move into electrification, because installing heat pumps in multifamily housing requires maintenance in order to keep up that efficiency. So you want to say, are your incentives aligning with that? And third, this is something that is near and dear to our heart at Evernorth, is that we think it's a meaningful way to connect the benefit of solar to LMI renters. By taking on the electric load of the building, we can connect it to solar, and our renters can benefit from stable rents and participating in a clean energy future. So if the owner, I'm talking as fast as I can, if the owner's paying the utility, right, we are the customer in this framework. And over the years, Evernorth has worked with Efficiency Vermont, BED, Vermont Gas, GMP, Hardwick Electric, Morrisville Power and Light, V-Light, and 3 thermal programs. You get the message. We are experts at weaving the various programs together. But it's not without some frustration, right? And in our experience, we typically start with expertise housed either at Efficiency Vermont or the appropriate EEUs, such as Burlington Electric. And through that team of program managers, we get technical assistance. We learn from each other via real world feedback. And you know, that works pretty well. But I will say there's a lot of people hours both on our side and on the side of the EEUs and the DUs, and that goes into that. So I would think if you take a step back and ask how could we structure a system that works better for the customer, and again, I am talking about this slice of a customer, which is a multifamily building owner, and in particular, affordable rental housing. So might we look at a different approach, which I think is part of what the questions you've been asking. And you know, I as a developer, it would be easier for us if we had one point of contact. And we're not going to have time for today, but Jess Newbelt is our senior developer at Evernorth. We just completed this lovely 68-unit affordable housing in Shelburne called Bay Ridge. Almost a fully electrified building, but and we'll submit some comments in writing, but we touched about just every energy efficiency program we could for that project. So I would acknowledge that the PUC has broader goals than direct energy incentives to customers, and that there's so many types of customers that makes this even more complex. But I do think we could ask some questions around energy equity where we might be able to improve the lens of energy equity. You know, and when I say that, that's can we design a system that delivers deeper benefits to our lowest income Vermonters? Can we revise the statutory direction of the limited resources you've all talked about today for energy efficiency so that effectiveness is defined in a manner that also lifts underserved populations? Third, what are the LMI goals for the Tier 3 program? And can they be made requirements, not goals? Can they be consistent across the DUs? And can the targets be increased? And lastly, I would say, and again, I think this is important to keep in mind, that whatever system we have, are we ensuring that LMI households are not left behind in this clean energy transition? Thank you for your time today. And we'll submit written comments.
That's great. Thank you very much. Thanks for flying through that quickly. All right. So I think we have a few minutes to get out of here. So next steps, we will, as I mentioned, we will send out a memo sometime probably next week, propose next steps. But I would like folks to also sort of reflect on what they heard. What are the biggest or the most significant challenges? What does it make sense for us to start diving into as well? While that is still fresh in your mind from today. And I just want to say thank you again to everyone for showing up. We very much appreciate this important conversation. I appreciate everyone's time. Thank you all.